At what point were you sitting there? I've got an idea. It's going to be called Adidas Spezial, and it's going to be huge. Is that how it kind of panned out?
No, it was none of them things. It was a call from the head of Adidas in the UK around 2013. Who do you think we should collaborate with? And I said, I don't think you should collaborate with anybody. I think you should do something somewhere between a sub-brand and a collaboration. In a way, what Spezial's done, it's kind of awakened a sleeping giant. I knew there was an audience there for it. That first season went on sale and the queues around the block at Oi Polloi, and it was like, oh, hang on a minute. It's got a really dedicated following here in the UK because it taps into my own personal references from my own personal experiences that sort of kind of come through in the storytelling. And I don't kind of invent silly stories. I make trainers, I make jackets, I make t-shirts.
Everyone's phone on silent, please.
Are you lot ready then, yeah?
Ready?
You all going, yeah?
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Aspden. Good to see you, mate. Now, do you want to put that down there?
Yeah.
Gary's got a magic bag. Whoa! Have a seat. Sit down.
Thank you.
Oh, lovely stuff. How are you, mate?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This is all right, isn't it?
Thanks for coming, everyone. Appreciate it.
Absolutely ruined, mate. You well, mate? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm great. Yeah.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Is that
It's a prototype.
Is it? Yeah.
It's a prototype.
Are we all right with these squeaky chairs? Are we all right with these squeaky chairs, yeah? Yeah. Just try and sit still, yeah? We're in the Manchester store. It is the eve of the Spezial launch, autumn-winter 2025.
That's correct.
Hot cakes, Gary. Hot cakes. Queues. Seriously. Now left.
Glad
Gone.
to hear it.
Gone. I wanted to have a chat about you. I wanted to find out a little bit about the man, you know, who's responsible for the phenomenon that is Spezial. People know who you are, you know, they follow you on Instagram and you know, all the you know, Adidas heads, the Spezial followers, they know about you, but it's a really interesting story. And I don't know it all, I know bits and pieces, but because we've known each other a little while now, haven't we?
A little while.
Are we friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah,
okay.
we're friends.
Okay. I'm going to take you back to the beginning. Tell us about starting out at Adidas. How did you end up at Adidas in the first place?
I got lost for a few years in acid house. I came to Manchester in 1988, grew up in Darwin. I worked part-time in a clothes shop called Coral Twigs. Two girls who worked in there with me, Fiona and Rebecca, they worked at the Hacienda. Probably spent more time in the Hacienda than I spent in college. And Blackburn was the kind of epicentre of the illegal parties, so I was in the thick of all that, and then early 90s ended up, well, I dropped out of college after 6 months.
What were you studying at college?
Fashion design.
Okay.
I left school at 16, couldn't stand school, got a job in a local factory, lasted about 3 months, and then I kind of left before I got sacked.
Right.
And then I was signing on, and my mum said, if you don't do something with yourself, you're out on your ear. So the thing I was good at school was art, so I applied for a foundation course in art in Blackburn, and I did that for a year, but I spent more time in a pub called the Vulcan than I did in college. I was messing about really, but there's a girl I was having a kind of little bit of a scene with, and she said not many men apply to do fashion. And this was like 1987 or whatever, so 88 it would have been actually, early 88. So I looked at fashion courses, and Manchester at the time, Manchester Polytechnic, had a very poor fashion design course. And so I thought, well, I'll put that as my first choice. And I went and bought a new rig out and from Richard Creme in town, and went to this interview at Manchester Poly and told them how I'd been to Paris and Milan, which was true, you know, because been interrailing.
Yeah, but you've not been checking out like the fashion scene.
I haven't really been checking. No, not in the, not, you know, but it kind of.
It's a half-truth, Gary.
It worked for the purposes of getting on the course. So I got on the course, got the part-time job, lasted about 6 months, dropped out, ended up in Hume in a squat. got in the mix with all the acid house stuff, and then come 1993, I just thought I need to change my life, and so I did, and I moved away, and I got sober, and I stopped partying, and after I got sober, I reapplied to college in Preston. I was 24 years old, so I was considered a mature student. And I did a course in fashion promotion, 2 years, and then I went to London for a year and did internships. It was a lot of right place at right time stuff, but I did work hard when I was at college. I was focused because I thought, if I don't make this work for me, you know, the options aren't great.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to break dance, and there was a kid who used to break dance. He's from Urmston, a kid called Evo.
Right.
And he used to dance with a crew called Street Machine. And Evo was like Street Machine's secret weapon. He was amazing.
What was his discipline? Everything. Oh.
But the thing is, like, when I stopped dancing in '86, and when most of us stopped dancing, Evo got into kickboxing and fitness. So he stayed really fit, and he was a couple of years younger than me. And so when the breakdancing thing took off in the 90s again, he used to go down to London and just win the UK championship every time and get himself a free PlayStation every year. And I connected with Evo around that time, and he said, "Oh, can you connect me with brands to, like, you know, hook me up?" And so I linked him with Adidas, and then he won the championship, and the Prodigy asked him to go on tour with them. Right. And so through that, I'd met this woman at Adidas, I was getting stuff for him, and then I got contacted by the Prodigy's tour manager saying, you know, "We believe you've got a link at Adidas," and so I kind of hooked that up, and then I came back to the north to do my final year of college. And the woman at Adidas said to me, "If you can hook us up with musicians, we'll give you free trainers." Right. And so I started doing that, and then she got fired, and they had all these unfulfilled orders with my pager number on it. It was a pager back then. Google it. So I get this number comes up on my pager, a London number. So I call them up, and it's the Adidas office, and they said they thought I was some big shot music manager. They said, "We've got all these unfulfilled orders with your contact on them," and I explained to them that I was still at college and that I was in my final year, and I was peppered, I was skint at that point. And so the trainers kind of came in handy, and so they said, "Do you want to come and see us? We're not going to advertise a job, we're going to headhunt for it." And it was a job based out of the office in Covent Garden called Entertainment Promotions. And back then, in the late 90s, they just had Britpop, and like everybody from the Spice Girls to Oasis was wearing 3 stripes. Yeah. It was like, you know, it was part of the fabric of the 90s, really. And so Adidas in Stockport, where they had offices for the UK, were getting all these inquiries from like TFI Friday and, you know, like asking for products. So they needed somebody to be the arbiter of what was right to get involved with and what wasn't, which had been this lady's job previously. And so, but it was seen as a bit of a joke role at the time. The whole landscape of the sportswear industry was very different in the late 90s to what it is now. Originals was not yet a division of the company. They were making some original shoes. There weren't a lot of variety in silhouettes as to what you could get or whatever. So basically, I got that job, and I just absolutely grabbed it with both hands and ran with it. I mean, I've still got my letter when they offered me the job. You know, like when the letter came, I was just staring at this piece of paper because it had like the Adidas header on it, and I'm like, I can't believe this. And when I walked into the office, I'm like, I'm in the belly of the beast, do you know what I mean? It's like, because this is a brand that I've worn since getting a pair of Adidas kick in the 70s, or Beckenbauer football boots and Europa t-shirts that my mum got us out of the catalogue through wearing Adidas Firsts and Adidas Flushes and Adidas Colorados and all that stuff that we wore with the hip hop thing, and you know, and so it was, you know, I was just like, I'm gonna make this my own, really, and that's what I did, and I had to make what I did understandable to people that didn't share the same reference points as I've got. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of the people in the company were sort of, you know, they were like what Americans would call jocks. You know, like just really into sport. But, you know, like the whole fashion lifestyle thing, nobody really took it that seriously.
Calling it soccer and stuff like that.
Well, the thing is, I felt like I'd sort of slipped through the net, like I was a bit of a misfit there, really. But what I started to do was take Polaroids of people when they came in the office to get stuff.
Right.
And then...
Who was coming in then?
The first person that came in my office was Bez,
right,
from the Happy Mondays. It was good timing when I started at Adidas because the Mondays had just reformed. And when the Mondays reformed, that very first reformation, it was like a big deal, do you know what I mean? And I got my first trip to Japan because of the Happy Mondays.
Right.
You know, I said to Sean and Bez, if you wear Adidas for all your, for all your promo and your press, I can get myself a trip to Tokyo.
I mean, it's just everyone wins, don't they? You know, like you're working with a band who you love, they're getting some free gear, and Adidas are loving it because they're wearing their free gear.
Yeah, it was just great. I mean, you know, like the Happy Mondays were like at the epicentre of a crowd of people. They weren't like traditional pop stars, do you know what I mean? They were working class kids like we were, do you know what I mean? And absolutely. So when I got the job, they were very supportive to me, really, really supportive to me. You know what I mean? They kind of looked out for me. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, Bez called yesterday, you know what I mean? Because I sent him some bits from the new drop, you know, and he always rings to say thanks, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, and he laughs about it now, you know, he's like, I was the first person that came in your office when you became Gary Adidas, you know, but it was like, because that's what they used to call me back then, you know, or the G-Man or whatever, and so their reformation timed really well with the beginning of my career.
Yeah, the first person I heard say Gary Adidas was Manny. I think when Manny was down doing Soccer M and we were chatting about something, obviously I'm a massive Roses fan, and I know you are. So you've got a close relationship with Ian, I know. So I'm just interested to know how that kind of evolved and came about. Yeah,
well, I knew Aziz Ibrahim, who was playing with Ian, and you know, Ian's just like, you know, he's a king. He's a beautiful, beautiful guy. I met him first time in a rehearsal studio in Stockport. It was just up the road from the Adidas office, and that's the first time I met him. And you know, like, I kind of held it down when I first met him because, you know, like, and it's nothing I'm saying now that he doesn't know now, but you know, I remember when My Star released. I remember going to HMV in Blackpool and buying the CD single, and it was like, yes, he's back. Yeah, and he's back.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Exactly, it's like, and you know, and I'd See the Dawn on the B-side, and not long after that, that's when I first met him, and we kind of got on immediately, really. You know, and then he asked me if I would tour with him as his tour DJ, but I don't. But you
what's
know,
a gig that is?
I wasn't a DJ. You know, I don't know how to mix. We enjoyed each other's company, so it was like, just grab a bag of CDs, there's a couple of CDJs, and just play your tunes, you know. Brilliant. So I'd sort of play records before he came on stage. Yeah. But you know, Ian's got impeccable taste when it comes to, you know, his musical taste is impeccable, you know. And I remember like a concert promoter coming to me when he was playing Manchester, he was playing the Arena, and said, oh, you know, so tonight it's a Manchester audience, can you play some indie classics? So I went backstage, said to Ian, I said, the promoter's just asked me to play some indie classics. And Ian looked at me, he went, there's no such thing. Because he just wanted, you know, reggae, hip hop, punk rock, psychedelic, northern soul, you know, like rebel music. And then solo years with Ian were just like best times. Just we used to just belly laugh. I have so many good memories of that. And you know, I don't see him as often as I did. He keeps himself to himself. But you know, we went walking the other week, and we were walking for hours, and I said to him, I said, you know what, you were a real inspiration to me. Because, you know, like when I first got my job, and I'm thrown in at the deep end, and I'm in London, and there's all this kind of, you know, the stuff that people get easily seduced by, you know, fame and, you know, all that stuff, like, you know, Ian's the antithesis of that. Do you know what I mean? And I found that really inspiring. You know, he's never, you know, he's not that guy for red carpets. No. He's not interested in that. He'd rather be amongst regular folks. You know what I mean? And I, you know, at that time, it's like, you know, because it's like he was like a mythical character, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'd be invited to all those things, but he just had zero interest in any of it, you know, and so he was a role model to me in some ways.
He's got a decent trainer collection, hasn't he?
He's got a decent trainer collection, yeah. He's got a decent trainer collection.
A lot of people just assume that you'll go, yeah, we're going to do, you know, this trainer in this colourway with this jacket in this fabric, and people don't see all the iterations of something that don't make the cut, you know, that get left behind on the shop floor, as it were. There are prototypes, aren't there?
That's what's in the bag.
So Gary's brought a bag of prototypes, and what we thought we'd do is we're going to put it out to you guys to decide which prototype you want Gary to talk about. Gary, what options have we got? They're all from this drop.
The GS2, the Lytham, the Samoa 2, and I've brought prototypes of the Munchen 2.
Let's do a show of hands.
Okay, who wants to see the prototypes of GS2?
Okay.
Quite a few there.
Yeah, all right.
Who wants to see the prototypes of Samoa 2? It's pretty evenly matched.
Yeah.
Munchen 2?
Oh,
not many of them.
Not many for the Munchens,
Not many
Gary.
for Munchen 2. Oh, that's probably the most interesting one because we dropped it.
They don't want it, Gary.
They don't want it. All right, it's all right. Lytham. Oh, there's a few on that.
It's the first two.
Let's start with the Samoa 2.
Yeah, let's go with the Samoa 2s, yeah.
So this is a Japanese, made under license, Samoa. This was the shoe that inspired the shoe that we did back in 2015, I think it was, the Heimburn. But the toe guard that we used on the Heimburn was the one that they use on Samoas, that Adidas make for Samoas. So the very first Samoa sample, this was the P1 sample that came back. Have we got a Samoa 2 here?
Well, here's some I prepared earlier.
So this was the ambition, to get something that was in the realms of this. If you look at the profile of the shoe, it's got that kind of nice slope to it. The toe box is really nice, but the toe guard on this, in comparison to what you'll get on the regular Samoa that Adidas have been selling for the last kind of 20 years, is very, very different. But in order to do that, you have to create a mould. And in the early days of Spezial, because the volumes we were making were much lower than they are now, when I came to do the Heimburn, I wanted to do that with the Heimburn, and after the P1 sample, they went, we don't think you're going to be able to do the numbers to justify the cost for making the mould for that. So this was the ambition, but then the first round sample that came back looked like that. Now the first round sample, you don't get the materials or the colours. The factory use whatever they've got lying around.
Right.
So, but the shape of that, I was like, people are going to see that, they're going to go, it's just a Samoa. You know, it's just like the Samoa reissue. So I was like, okay, cross my fingers, you give the comments to the team, it goes back to the factory, and it's like, okay, here comes number 2, here comes number 2, because we've got 3 sample rounds to do this in. Number 2 comes back, and I'm like, is that it? It's like, if I put that out, I'm going to get hammered. Like, you know, like, so we might have to drop this shoe.
Right. What was it about that one, Gary, that irked
Well,
you
the factory
so much?
completely got it wrong, because there was like an extra overlay at the back,
right,
and you had this piece that was kind of built into here, which they completely overlooked and just didn't do. You communicate to developers, the developers communicate to factories,
which is still all on you, isn't it? Ultimately.
And then the factory sends it back, and it's like, and I'm like, we've got one more sample round to get this shoe out. And I started thinking, is this some kind of like cursed shoe? Is this like some jinx shoe? Because I had the thing with the Heimburn, and I've tried to revisit it, thinking, you know, it'll work better, and then these appear.
Yeah.
And you go, how do we get from that to this? You know, and admittedly there were some tweaks that we made. You know, we changed the tongue to suede, we did this woven patch, we changed the colourway, we did the contrast stitching. But just when you look at the toe guard on this compared to the toe guard on this,
I can see that.
There's just absolutely no comparison. And you know, when you look at the the original shoe. I had another, this isn't the sample I actually took to Germany, but the sample I took to Germany had this kind of indentation in it where it was almost like bulging over the midsole. So, you know, when these came, I was like, oh, there is a God.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was like massive, massive relief. But, you know, like the flat suede shoes are the hardest ones because, for one, I know that there's an audience who want flat suede and nothing else, and they tend to be the most critical, and they go, lazy, no imagination went into that, and you go, well, what should I have done? Yeah. Couldn't you have done a doubling? And you kind of go, like, you know, so it's like, how many times can you reinvent something that's suede, low profile, 3 stripes, T-toe, you know what I mean? You kind of, you quite limited, like, compared to something like that, that you can go in all kinds of different directions. Something like this, you're incredibly constrained in what you can do.
Yeah. Got to ask you about Liam and Noel, and you know, Oasis. I know you've had a relationship with them, you know, for quite a number of years, but obviously this summer, you know, when it was, I think for anyone who went, it was a pretty life-affirming summer in terms of all those gigs. It was like, you know, it was like a World Cup. That's the way I could describe it. I think Noel said it was like a World Cup where everyone's on the same team and everyone wins, and I thought it was unbelievable. And you released a couple of pairs of trainers, very well received. Just tell us a little bit about, you know, when you first came into contact with the brothers.
I met Liam first. The guy that cuts my hair was cutting Liam's hair at the time, and I think he'd been turning up and cutting Liam's hair, and Liam's going, where are you getting them trainers from? And so he arranged for us to meet, and I met him at the management offices at Ignition near Marylebone. I had kind of curly hair then, and he jumped out his car.
Pictures?
Oh, they're kicking around. There's people in here who've got evidence. I had a lot more hair back then. But yeah, no, he came down to the office in Covent Garden. And what I used to do back then is I used to, because back then, you see, the only currency in my job was relationships and products. Yeah. That was it. Like, no one was getting, like, cutting a cheque to wear the brand, or there's none of that. The only people that got paid to wear the brand were athletes, right, sports people. So what I used to do was I used to speak to the sales team and said, you know, any like independent sports shops that are sitting on old stock. And so I remember once going to like some shop in Kentish Town. I always remember this really well, and I went in and I went, you know, I believe you've got a load of old stock in your basement. He went, yeah. I said, do you want to swap for new stuff? Oh my God, I'd love that. And I'm going, I get down there and there's like blue boxes, brown boxes from the 90s, you know. And so what I used to do, I used to have a little kind of room inside the Adidas office just full of vintage product. So, because like, I met Noel a few months after I met Liam, and you know, like Noel said to me, he said, you know, I'm not that bothered about getting free stuff. I want stuff that other people can't get hold of, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I endeavoured to find dead stock. And when I was at college, you know, there was a couple of times just, you know, where I'd find dead stock stuff and sell it on to make a little bit of extra money or whatever. A lot of the bands would come in because they knew they could, and now I think back to it, because I've got my archive and my collection, I think of some of them shoes I gave away. I was like, oh no. But you know, like I kept a few out of it for myself. And when I was on my travels, like even when I, you know, went first trip to Tokyo with the Happy Mondays, you know, like I was out in Tokyo looking for all the licensee made Descent products that were still kicking around in markets over there, because in Japan they'd had the license to make their own Adidas stuff up until about 1998, just before I started working for them. So when I got there in 99, there was still plenty of that stuff floating around, you know what I mean? So I was like filling my bag with, you know, whatever I could get that you couldn't get here. And what I used to have to do was do trades as well. So when I'd go to Adidas global marketing meetings, I'd find like, oh, there's a guy from Adidas Argentina, they've still got a license. There's a guy from Adidas South Korea, So I'd build relationships with people from different countries, and I'd say to like the guy from Adidas Argentina, hey, if I send you a signed Oasis gold disc, can you send me like 3 boxes of Adidas Quest Stars or whatever? So it was like, because there were no systems set up inside the company to purchase this stuff. So
like old school bartering, isn't it?
It was old school bartering, it was kind of trading, do you know what I mean? So I remember Jamiroquai going to Japan, and Jamiroquai was huge in Japan. And I arranged for him to go into the Adidas office and meet all the staff there. So after that, it's like, can you send me 3 box loads of Stan Smith ones? No problem, Gary, anything you need, do you know what I mean? So a lot of it was just about, you kind of, within the confines of a corporate company, having to kind of hustle to get this stuff, do you know what I mean?
Just going back to Noel is quoted on Life Jacket.
Yeah, I was really flattered by that.
Yeah, he said being asked to do an Adidas trainer by yourself was like being asked to do a B-side by Paul McCartney, which I thought was a really lovely thing to say. You know, I know he knows you, but it must have been lovely to hear that.
It was nice to hear that, do you know what I mean? But, you know, Northern lads, aren't they? So it's like, you never get that sort of face to face, you know what I mean?
No,
you're great, you are, aren't you? You know what I mean? But I was flattered, and the thing about Noel and Liam is, you know, they're working class kids. You know, they come off they come out of Burnage, and you know, and I mean, I was in Tokyo last week, and it was like they kind of owned Tokyo.
Yeah.
You think, wow, you know, 2 kids who've come out of a council house in Burnage have created this phenomenon.
Movement.
And it's beautiful to see.
I've got to ask you about Liam's hat.
Everybody assumed I knew that it was, you know, like that they were getting back together and all that, and I didn't.
Come on, Gary.
I genuinely did not. But Liam he got in touch to say he wanted to get some bits for the tour, some stuff made, and so he was getting his house done up in London, so he was living out near Gloucester, so I had to drive up to Gloucester, and he was in this house. I remember walking in the house, and he had a suit of armour in the hallway. It was like something out of a Peter Sellers film or something. It was brilliant. And he was talking about wanting this hat. He was saying he wanted something that looked like soldiers would wear in the desert while they're drinking tea and smoking opium. Do you know what I mean? So he had this idea about this hat, and so I went away and worked with the accessories team in Germany, which we don't ordinarily do that because we haven't got the resource to just like, oh, you know, we've got a sewing machine here in the corner, we'll just knock one up for you. Yeah. It's not like that. No. So we sampled it, and then I went up. He'd moved back to London, and I went to see him and took it round and tried it on, and he loved it. And then and then I get the kind of text message after text message about a hat. Do you know what I mean? But it was we made it in a few other colours as well for him, and initially, you know, and then, you know, the first night of the tour, because it's like, you know, he's going to do what he's going to do. You don't know what he's going to wear. Made some trousers for him as well that he wore at Heaton Park. And yeah, so it's like, it was a few gigs into the tour before he put the hat on.
Well, that makes it all more special, the fact that you couldn't say to Liam, go and wear that. You know, you couldn't tell him what to do.
If you don't have too many expectations, you don't get too disappointed, you know, and you just kind of got to go, well, we'll make it, and if he wears it, great, and if he doesn't, you dust yourself down and you get on to the next thing. Yeah. But the good thing about Noel, Liam, Mondays, Roses, you know, like they don't rely on stylists. No. They dress themselves. Do you know what I mean? They know what they like. They know what the style is, and that's what they wear. Do you know what I mean? And you know, for better or for worse, I like and I respect them for that. You know. So the original idea was about doing a GS without plugs. A lot of the Grand Slams that were released in the early 2000s, PU soles have crumbled on them. Yeah. And somebody they'd taken a Grand Slam upper and they put it onto a sole unit from a shoe from another brand. But it actually looked quite interesting. And so the original idea for this was to do a Grand Slam but without the plugs. Right. Now, I love the plugs. I love the plugs. I mean, you know, one of my first shoes was the SRS. and you know, and it was almost like LA Trainer and SRS were our first attempts at customization, because some people would have like 3 red plugs in or 3 white plugs in or red, white and blue plugs or whatever. But it's interesting because the modern Adidas trainer fans versus, you know, some of the older Adidas trainer fans, they have quite different ideas on things. So like, I see a shoe like the Handball 5 plug,
Yeah.
and I go, look at them, they're beautiful. Put them out on the shelves.
No.
They don't really sell very well. So I thought maybe we can do some of the Grand Slam with, you know, without the pegs and test it out. But this came, and to me it looked almost like an Air Force One or something. It looked like a basketball shoe. This was a top 10 tooling. I knew I wanted a tooling where it was kind of higher at the back and had that kind of swoop. But it's, you know, this is a P1 sample, so, you know, it's like, it's rough, you know, and it's not the gum colour we would have liked. No. And with Grand Slam, you know, like, there's regional differences in what people think are important shoes. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you speak to some people in Liverpool, they'll say Adidas Zelda, you know, but if you speak to anybody who grew up where I grew up, Adidas Grand Slam was like the absolute pinnacle Adidas tennis shoe. You know, I get people every season, bring back Wimbledon, bring back Wimbledon, bring back Wimbledon, when I wouldn't be able to probably use a Wimbledon name on the stripe, so then they'd complain about that or whatever. But like Wimbledon versus Grand Slam, Wendell versus like nothing came close to Grand Slams. So this came and it was like, you know what, back to the drawing board for P2. And Otto, who works with me on the footwear, German guy, he suggested that we go with the Arvid tooling. But the thing with the Columbia tooling, you know, Arvid, Columbia, Galaxy. But the Galaxy was a white tennis shoe with silver stripes. Yeah. So it's like, right, well, if we do that, we can't do silver stripes, so otherwise it's going to be too close to a Galaxy.
And you've done a Galaxy, well, you've done the Galaxy, haven't you?
And I've done Galaxy previously for SPZL, so it was like, okay, well, let's try it with other stripes. Now, this is an example of, this has got silver stripes, but it ain't the silver that's on the Grand Slam. I mean, that's a soft grey, which was kind of inspired by the, is it called Indoor Court that we did in the early seasons, but that was the reference for that colour. Because you can say, oh, I want silver stripes, and there's 20 different silvers. And also, you know, sometimes when you're choosing colours, you're choosing off colour cards, but when that gets translated into a suede or translated into a leather, it looks slightly different. So, you know, it's not as simple as, oh, you know, I want that shoe and it's, you know, we'll just put silver stripes on it. You've got to get the right silver. That's an example of not getting the right silver. That's got like a pinkish tinge to it. But we talked about doing them with blue stripes, but then you see that, and to me that looks like a kind of, like where Grand Slam would end up after being commercialised as a high street shoe. Something about that though, I'm like, oh, I quite like that. But if you look at the colour of the colour of the tooling on that versus the colour of the tooling on that. Yeah, that's fantastic. Like, that would probably put off a mainstream punter who buys kind of high street trainers. You're right. To people who are more kind of, like, if you will, Adidas connoisseurs, that's more it. You know, and then it was like, okay, well, let's try a grey tooling with a navy blue stripe. Now this actually looks quite nice. I do quite like this one, do you know what I mean? But when we got to that one... You're right though, that isn't, in my mind, that's not anywhere near as subtle as that. That just works, doesn't it? What we're getting across here is, it's like, that's a fuckload of work, innit? Have you ever thought about a micropacer, Gary? I have actually. Yeah. I love micropacers, and I know a lot of people love micropacers, but I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts. Could that happen? It nearly happened once. Right. Yeah. Okay. Thing about it is, I've got to have an idea. Yeah. There's got to be an idea there. Yeah. There's got to be some... A reason. It's like some of the kind of iconic Adidas silhouettes, you know, like they do them and then they commercialise them and then they kind of end up in all kinds of random materials and colours and God knows what. So there's got, you know, like for it to be something that sits within SPZL, I've got to have an idea that's going to elevate that shoe in some way. Do you know what I mean? That's going to bring something to it. Well, maybe we can have a chat and, you know, we take it offline, as they say now, you know, and we'll workshop it, Gary.
At what point were you sitting there in your leather chair at home and you thought, you know, I've got an idea, and it's going to be called Adidas Spezial, and it's going to be huge. Is that how it kind of panned out?
No, none of them things.
No.
It was a call from the head of Adidas in the UK around 2013, just after the Olympics. They were doing a bunch of different collaborations, none of which were having any resonance in the UK market. And so the head of the UK said, who do you think we should collaborate with? And I said, I don't think you should collaborate with anybody. I think you should do something that's somewhere between a sub-brand and a collaboration. And he said, what do you mean? I said, let me go away and put something together. So I put together like a pitch. And you know, someone said to me, one of my detractors online said, you know, time to step down, Aspden, and let someone else drive the bus, you know. And I'm thinking, well, I created the bus.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I built the bus.
It's my bus.
It's like, so what I did, I put a proposal together, and I realised it was going to have to get past the brand people, the comms people, the sales people. It had to be. So what I did was, rather than kind of go, hey, I know loads about Adidas and aren't I great, I got people from the industry who I've worked with to kind of give me references.
Right.
So I thought, right, so I asked Peter Saville, can I get a reference from you, talking about the projects we worked on when we did the Y3 Hacienda shoe and why I should curate a range for Adidas. So Peter gave a quote. Barry Bound from JD Sports gave a quote, so the sales team see, so, you know, like the design people and the creative directors see Peter Saville and they go, oh, well, you know, rubber stamp there. Barry Bound from JD, the salespeople go, oh, rubber stamp there. Ashley Heath, who's a publisher of Arena Homplu and Pop magazine, you know, like the comms people go, you know, most directional men's magazine in the world, the publishers saying Gary's the man for the... So it's like, I got other people to say it for me, in a way, and put this idea together and said, you know, look, in a way what Spezial's done, it's kind of awakened a sleeping giant. I knew there was an audience there for it, but what was available to them at that time, multiple colours of Hamburgs, you know, the odd handball Spezial, Gazelles, it's kind of like, you know, there's plenty more to go at than this. Yeah. But it was kind of on the job learning for me, really, because, you know, I knew a bit about making trainers, and if you look at the apparel in the early seasons compared to what we're doing now, it's two very different stories, really. And so we did the first collection, but well, what happened was the head of the UK went to the head of Germany and said, this is what we want to do. And the head of originals in Germany, he said, well, I guess any idea is better than no idea, let's give it a try. Right. But there was some resistance, you know, because it's a big company and there's a lot of opinions and there's politics, and they gave me a 2-season deal. It's almost like, I felt like some of them were almost humouring me. Because I've been working for Adidas at that point for 16 years, but it's like I was seen as like a marketing guy. They're going, well, you're not a designer. And I'm going, you don't need a designer. No. Design's been done. Yeah. What you need is a curator. It's all right going, Gary, the man who made Spezial, but it's a team that makes Spezial, do you know what I mean? And there's been numerous people who've worked on Spezial over the past 11 years, do you know what I mean? But I've worked with some brilliant people. That first season went on sale and there were queues around the block at Oi Polloi. Yeah. And like at that time, Adidas was like number 4 brand in there, after sort of Nike, New Balance and Reebok, I think. And it was like, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here then? It continued, but it's always been a bit of a battle because it doesn't resonate globally. It works really well in this country. A lot of people who buy it in this country imagine it's like this everywhere. Yeah. And if it was, I'd probably be doing this from a yacht. Do you know what I mean? But it isn't. It's got a really dedicated following here in the UK because it taps into references, my own personal references from my own personal experiences.
So from this drop, could you select a pair of shoes and a piece of apparel that Or is it very difficult to try to pick favourites?
It's very difficult, but you know, I tend to wear these kind of outdoor style trainers. Yeah. I tend to wear runners and tend to wear leisure shoes. And then in summer months I tend to wear white court shoes.
Right.
So I'm sort of specific about that. I don't really wear a lot of the sort of flat suede stuff. No. So when I first saw the collection, I think Lytham was probably my favourite out of it.
Right.
You know, and I'll show you, that's the CP company version that was evolved into Lytham, which was an Adidas version.
Let's just have a look at that. Show of hands, who thinks we should make this? Yeah, everyone in the room, Gary.
Okay,
crack on.
Consider it done. No, but you know, this was like Paul Harvey didn't really want to do a leisure shoe, and this came back, and I thought this has got a way to go to get it to where we want it to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So and you know, as you can see, it's in leather.
Beautiful.
But the Lytham, when I first got the Lytham, I was like, these are great. And so I'm sample size, so I've had a pair for a little while now. So I've worn them about quite a bit, but this week, right now, today, my favourite is a Grisdale.
Your favourite song changes every day. What about, because we are Life Jackets, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Declan Rice looks, I mean, fantastic choice for your Muse for the film. He looks fantastic in it.
Thank you. The approach came from him to us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. The sports marketing team got in touch and said he wants to do something that's kind of lifestyle based. And out of all the stuff that we do, Spezial's the one that he'd like to do. Are you interested? And I was immediately interested, because not only is he a good football player, he strikes me as a really decent man. Yeah. And when I met him, I realised that he's a good guy. It felt like it was appropriate product for him. And you know, after we did the shoot, we had a rain machine on the shoot. We set up a rain machine, the team from Anson, and all the backdrops, all the city backdrops, that was all kind of AI sort of generated, and so it was a bit Blade Runner-esque, you know what I mean? And like, as soon as we finished shooting, he was like, wanted to take the samples there and then, do you know what I mean? So he was genuinely into it, and but I was really flattered, you know. They said, the sports marketing team said, you know, he'd love to do something for Spezial and he'd love to meet you, so I was like, great. Yeah. And I had a few other kind of ideas that I was kicking around, but when that kind of appeared, and I thought, you know, because we'd just done Adam Wharton as well. Yeah,
another great shout.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, do I do another footballer? Should I do a musician? Should I do an actor? Should I use models? Or what do we do next? So
available, Gary. Available.
So it was, it just fell nicely. You know, the request came in at the time when we were figuring out who to cast for the film, and you know, and it fitted.
We're going to have to do this again, because what I think people would love to know is your favourite, you know, your favourite 11 jackets, your favourite 11 pairs of trainers. We want to talk about the film, so I think we need to do a part 2 of this at some stage soon. But I have one final question for you, and I don't want you to fudge the answer, Gary, you know, because I think you're a man of conviction. You can leave this building with one pair of Spezial trainers, right, that you've curated over the last 11 years. One pair only. I want to know what they are and why.
Is this like a desert island disc? Where it's, for the rest of your life, you can have an infinite number of pairs of this, but you've only got this one shoe? Because I'll tell you straight away, it's a Lacombe. It's a Lacombe. Yeah. Although, I need to caveat this. It'd be the Lacombe if I was living somewhere where there's not a lot of rain. Yeah. If it was somewhere where there's a lot of rain, I would probably, you know, if I had to live in the Lake District for the rest of my life, then it would probably be the Winter Hill. Okay. But Lacombe is, for me, the best shoe that I've ever worked on. Making a simple shoe like that, you know, that feels like a classic and that can endure, you know, they don't come by very often, those. So for me, it's a Lacombe. It's
a great shout. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, thank you.
It's gone quick, hasn't it?
Yeah. I'm just glad everyone showed up. I was
Of course they're showing up.
No, but I was made up when I got here. You know, I'm sorry people had to queue or whatever. You know, but you know, yeah. Thanks for the support. Really appreciate it.
Gary Aspden, ladies and gentlemen.